What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Week 9 NFL Studs and Duds recap. Before we hop in, a quick reminder, please do hit that like button. Also, make sure that you consider using promo code Franchise Guy. The next time you're buying tickets, do it on SeatGeek. Promo code Franchise Guy will save you $20 on your next purchase. So definitely go check that out. If you're new to this series, what this is a comprehensive recap of the NFL week prior. Going through all the players you need to know about, not bashing the same headlines into the dirt. Really just going through every player that you might not be hearing about on SportsCenter or NFL Network, talking about whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling, who's contributing to wins, and potentially who's contributing to losses. While we do that, you will be looking at my own custom Madden ratings. If you don't care about Madden and you're just here for the football, don't worry about it. These ratings accurately show how I perceive these guys in real life. So if you don't care about Madden, it doesn't really matter. For the people that do care about Madden, thank you for using my roster. I do ask that you consider a donation for the service. The link for that is in the description below. Also, a little note, a lot of you getting antsy about my draft classes and when those are coming out. 2021, my ETA on that is, within the next 10 to 12 days, I would say. Obviously, these updates during the season keep you pretty busy. So let's hop in here. We're going to start with the star of the week, Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I do have to apologize. I completely left out the Monday Night Football game. Just an oversight on my end. So Steelers fans, Dolphins fans, I apologize. At least Steelers fans will be happy to say that, Minkah is a total stud. Dare I say, a star free safety. And it's cool because I've kind of had some back and forth, I guess, with Dolphins fans about what is Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't think anyone really knew. I mean, he was a nickel corner at Alabama. We knew he's an awesome athlete. Some people thought he should step out, try playing outside corner. He tried that a couple games in Miami. It didn't work. And, they were using him as a box safety, as a nickel corner like he was at Alabama. And he was fine, but he wasn't really, making a ton of plays there. And they tried him at free safety, just they didn't have the pass rush to kind of generate some of the more opportunistic throws that he's seeing here in Pittsburgh now, I think. But even me, I didn't think he had the true range to be that true free safety. Yes, he's fast, but I didn't know if he had that burst and deep ball instincts. Turns out that's what he is destined to play. And, maybe because he was at Alabama with guys like Eddie Jackson, it was harder for him to earn that rangy free safety position. It's hard to say exactly how we got here, but credit the Pittsburgh Steelers for seeing that. And ever since they traded for him, he is playing almost exclusively as that center fielding free safety, and it's a super valuable position. I thought when they made that trade for him for the first round pick, for one, I just didn't see them bouncing back in the way that they have. So it's like, how do you give up that high pick for what you might want to be a pick that turns into a quarterback? Well, the Steelers had a ton of foresight. They believe that Big Ben's going to be back, and they know, based on their evaluations of Minkah Fitzpatrick, and it's proved out true here, that he is a potentially elite free safety, Eddie Jackson type of playmaker there at the free safety position. You're not finding that with the 13th, 14th pick in the draft, most likely. Obviously, there's sleepers and stuff, but really great foresight by the Steelers here. Minkah has just been incredible here. Just Alabama safeties. It's one of the safest, pun intended, but it's one of the safest picks you can make come draft day, especially the free safety types there. They're just dominant athletes with great instincts, and they're always well coached, thanks to Saban. So Minkah's going up here, and then just several weeks after being a star of the week, Sam Darnold, time to really come down here, 76 to a 74. He said it himself. He's seeing ghosts. He is, I think, definitely getting hurt by everything that's going on in New York, and it's compounding some of these issues that he had coming out. That, he was kind of that Jameis Winston type of guy who is going to make those sort of boneheaded throws as a young quarterback. The question was, can he get in a situation where they can hone him in before it's too late? And I've always taken the stance that yes, the Jets can do that. They put better playmakers around him and stuff, but it's just not happening here for Sam Darnold. He is regressing, and it's tough because he has shown really nice flashes. I don't want to call him a bust at this point because he's shown those highs and he's shown those elite traits, but he's probably going to be playing for a new head coach. Maybe it'll be his fourth head coach in just 2 years if they end up firing Adam Gase midseason and then moving on from the interim. So it's just a train wreck here in New York, and Sam Darnold is certainly not helping the issues. Like, I'm not trying to completely defend him, but it's just not working here. And then we are going to have another Dave Gettleman Award winner this week. This is the trophy for the week for the cheap interior defensive lineman that some team basically got for nothing that turns into a total dominant run stuffer, because this is what we make fun of Dave Gettleman for, is he overvalues run stuffing D tackles when it's quite frankly the easiest defensive position to find in the entire league, probably the easiest position in the entire NFL to find other than running back, which he also values a lot. So this week it's going to be a New York Jet, Falorenzu Fatukasi, plus 271 to a 73. Fatukasi was a 6th round pick last year, and the guy is just a ball of muscle. He fires off the ball. He'll make tackles in the backfield. He's actually been red hot here. He's going up for the 4th week in a row, but he is also going to be this week's Dave Gettleman Award winner for this week's cheap interior defender who dominated the run. All right, let's get into the game, starting with what was a really exciting Thursday night football game between the two NFC West teams, the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. And I have a ton of movement this week, so I'm sorry if I gloss over some of these guys. I want to get through this as fast as possible. So George Kittle's going up again. He is the best tight end in the NFL right now. Kittle's great at everything. He's even more impressive to me as what he does as a run blocker, opening up run lanes with this outside zone scheme. It's incredible. We know what he does as a receiver, so he's going to go up again. He's one of the best players in the NFL right now. And then Laken Tomlinson, he stays hot. He's going up for the 3rd week in a row. What a steal for the Niners. I'm pretty sure he was a waiver claim after Detroit let him go, or he was a really cheap free agent signing, one of the two, but a former first-round pick that Detroit just couldn't figure out, and Shanahan's gotten his hands on this guy, and he is really reaching that high upside as one of the top guards in the league right now that he originally had as a first-round pick. And then Daniel Brunskill, kind of the opposite, a tight end, undrafted out of San Diego State, but he's put on weight, and he's mauling guys. He's showing really good technique as a pass blocker as well. The Niners couldn't really run the ball like at will like they have this season in this game, and Brunskill had to drop back against Terrell Suggs, and I honestly don't know if Chandler Jones made his way over to that side of field or not, but he held up very well. So Brunskill staying hot here. This offense continues to roll. Some people might be saying, why isn't Jimmy Garoppolo going up? He's so good. Well, many of you know I am very high on Jimmy Garoppolo. I have him as one of the best quarterbacks out there. I think he's a top 10 guy as far as my Madden roster is concerned. So wasn't really surprised to see him kind of put the team on his back a little bit, because I personally think that's something that he's very capable of doing. Flipping over to the Cardinals side of the ball, Kenyon Drake plus 276 to a 78. I've been rough on Kenyon Drake, but I had a riot of a time watching Kenyon Drake go off in this game. He just looked energized. He was fun to watch. This offense perfectly uses his skill set, getting him in space. It's very similar to what Chase Edmonds has been able to accomplish this year. So good for Kenyon Drake. He seems to have found a good fit. I feel like he's probably still going to end up on a different team next year because they have Edmonds and David Johnson here, but looks like a good pick to get in a really good, competent running back. And as we've seen, this Cardinals team is competitive. So a good move to basically give up nothing for a starting running back. A couple notes on this offensive line. Some pieces are moving around here. We know this isn't the best offensive line in the world. So Justin Pugh, their big left guard free agent signing from a few years ago, who's been a pretty big disappointment here, he actually played at right tackle in this game. And we know the Niners have good edge players with Ford and Bosa, and he held up really well there at right tackle in this game. No movement this week, and I'm actually going to keep him at left guard as far as the roster is concerned, because I don't know what their plan is moving forward, but definitely a note there. And then also Mason Cole, who was a mid to late round pick center last year, he actually started at left guard and played pretty well. So I don't know if they'll stick with those. I think they probably should, honestly. If it worked against the best pass rush in the NFL, why not? But we'll see moving forward. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Zach Kerr could make him a candidate for the Dave Gettleman Award. Defending the run there, plus 170 to a 71. We had a lot of Dave Gettleman candidates this week. Free safety, Jalen Thompson. This guy was a supplemental draft pick for this team. They've been kind of shuffling since they released DJ Swearinger to figure out that safety position next to Budda Baker. Jalen Thompson getting a lot of reps here. Kind of that rangy free safety type, but he's been playing the box a little bit. So plus 263 to a 65. We're keeping an eye on him. All right, next up, we've got the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars out in London. Deshaun Watson, time to move him up. Like, no explanation needed here. He's just been phenomenal this year. The biggest reason that this Texans team is not just alive, but a team that you can at least picture finding their way to win a Super Bowl this year. I'm not saying it's likely, but his ability to just extend plays and create magic is top notch. And then this offensive line's figuring some things out. Titus Howard, this pick got pretty heavily criticized, and I still think this team should have been more aggressive to go and get Andre Dillard, who's playing really well for the Eagles right now. But they did do a good job evaluating this guy. He has made his way across. I think he's definitely started at left guard. I'm not sure if he snuck a left tackle start in there, but he's settled in at right tackle. This guy's a really good athlete out of a smaller school, was considered a raw. But these last few weeks, he's really settled in there and been a really solid pass protector. So, they've definitely done the most with that pick. And if he keeps developing like this, it's not going to be a big deal that they didn't go get Andre Dillard. And then Roderick Johnson, he stepped in at left tackle here. This guy was kind of a freak out of, I think it was Florida State. Went to the Browns, didn't amount for anything, gets released. He ends up here as a low-end, roster bubble guy for Houston. He makes the team. Due to injury, he steps in here and played pretty well at left tackle with Tunsil out, so he's going to go up. Then you got Benardrick McKinney. He's been quietly one of the best linebackers in the entire NFL this year. We know that Benardrick McKinney at 6'4", 255 pounds can thump. He's done it since college. It's been something he's been great at in the NFL, but his length really allows him to, break up passing lanes and stuff. And he's actually been a lot better in coverage over his last 20 starts or so. And, if he keeps developing in coverage, it's not like he's a poor athlete. He might be a little stiff, but he can really be an impact, elite impact player for this team. He's probably this team's best defender now that J.J. Watt is out. And then you've got Garyon Conley. He's going to go up. This looks like a good trade. This is somewhat similar to what the Steelers did with Minkah. Not to the same degree, but this is probably a guy that they liked. Obviously, their front office is in a shuffle, but Bill O'Brien likes. They go and get him mid-season, plug him right in, and he looks like, at worst, a decent starting caliber corner. We know he's got a high upside as a former first-round pick. Maybe just needed a change of scenery. And then Brennan Scarlett, he's kind of stepping up, especially this week with J.J. Watt going down, but with Clowney leaving as well. He's just having a pretty solid season. He's nothing crazy. This is honestly probably his ceiling right here. But he is a low-end starting caliber or a third edge guy. He's doing a good job here, plus 67 to a 70. Then on the Jacksonville side of the ball, Keelan Cole has woken back up. This guy was an undrafted free agent, totally broke out a couple of years ago and then disappeared off the face of the earth. Wasn't hurt or anything, but he's, just kind of disappeared. But now he's back. Going to be interesting to see what happens with Nick Foles coming back this week because Chark's been so good with Minshew. You've got Lee is on the IR. You've got Westbrook getting healthy. And then Keelan Cole getting in the mix here. It's an interesting wide receiver group. I like how those skill sets kind of play into each other. So it's going to be interesting how Foles utilizes these guys moving forward. Gardner Minshew's going to come down. He was awful in this game. One consistent thing about most backups is at some point there's going to be a game like this where they can't seem to hit the broadside of the barn if they're throwing it more than 10 yards downfield. And that was this game for Gardner Minshew. Now, I don't want to shred him because he's really impressed me. He's clearly at this point not a guy that you're comfortable being your starting quarterback. But I do think he's showed some really nice traits. The ability to elude pressure and extend plays has been really impressive there. His arm isn't bad. You do have some accuracy concerns there, but he could be something like a Case Keenum in that department, maybe somewhere between a Case Keenum and an Alex Smith. I don't think we've seen the last of Gardner Minshew, and the Jags are definitely happy to have him as their backup quarterback. Let's just leave it at that. I'm excited to see when and where we see Gardner Minshew again. And if Foles stinks, maybe they go back to him. Who knows? Right tackle Jawan Taylor. This was another guy. We talked about Houston taking Titus Howard earlier. People criticized them for passing on Jawan Taylor, who a lot of people had top 10 grades on as a right tackle. He's been really solid here for the Jags. That offensive line from a pass protection standpoint has been pretty good. So Taylor's going to go up. And then another Alabama safety here, Ronnie Harrison. He's had his ups and downs, and he's more of that thumping, strong safety type. But they really were leaning on him to come in here and replace Barry Church in that Cam Chancellor role inside of this Jacksonville-Seattle cover 3 defense. And he's getting a little more comfortable doing that there. Jets at the Dolphins. We had Sam Darnold. We had Lorenzo Fatukasi going up, so we already talked about them. And then Jordan Jenkins is heating up. You know, the Jets have a ton of weaknesses, from their ownership to their, well, I actually don't hate the front office now. They've kind of cleaned that up a little bit. And then their coach is miserable. Everything else on this roster is pretty much a mess. But their defensive line and their edge players, it's solid. They need a number 1 edge rusher, most certainly, and I would guess that's where they're going to go in the draft. But I like what they have on that D-line, because you've got McClendon there as the nose tackle. You got obviously Quinnen Williams, who was a top pick this year. You got Fatukasi to be another really good run defender. And then they have a bunch of pieces that have gone up throughout this series, reviewing the games this year, on the edge as rotational pieces. They need that number 1 pass rusher. I don't know if they can get their hands on Chase Young. I think they're in pretty decent shape to actually do that, so that could be interesting. But I do think that they have some things to build around really in that front 7, because I like their linebackers as well, but they've had injuries galore. Their top 3 linebackers are out. So, you know, the future could be a little more bright for this front 7, most certainly. And then for the Dolphins, again, sorry for no recap from last week, just an oversight on my end, but Ryan Fitzpatrick's gonna go up plus 166 to a 67. Fitzmagic is making its showing. I'm sure it'll die off here in a few weeks, but for now, Fitz is looking good. He carried this team to their first win, so good for them. Mike Gesicki, you know, and Preston Williams here, both going to go up. Preston Williams is going to head to the IR, unfortunately. This is a guy that has crept up throughout the season, and a guy that fell through the cracks in the draft because of off-field issues, but a total stud wide receiver. I had him as a top 10 wide receiver in this class, and he definitely looked like it for the first half of the season. Now going to head to IR, but if you are optimistic about one thing for the Dolphins, it's that, well, they are trying. They have a good culture here. I think Flores at least has these guys, you know, playing for something here, it looks like. But the playmakers here, you could do worse. I feel like Parker's probably going to be in a different team next year. But Mike Gesicki, Preston Williams, you still have Albert Wilson there in the slot. You could do worse if these guys develop. Something to build around there. It's really the most optimism I can give Dolphins fans. They got to completely figure out quarterback, running back, and offensive line. But I do think the playmakers there, you could do worse. And then Chris Reed has been starting at right guard out of Minnesota State. He's playing fine, so he's going to go up 60 to a 62. And then Vince Beagle, he's been red freaking hot. This guy is a total flex outside linebacker, the prototype Belichickian linebacker. Can rush the passer, drop into coverage, defend the run, can really do everything. Jack of all trades, master of none type of linebacker that is a perfect fit here. He seems to have found a home. I would fully expect that the Dolphins give him a contract extension just to have some stability here. He's not a high upside guy, but I think he's going to be a starter here for a few years, kind of as that Kyle Van Noy in this defense. And then you've got the Titans-Panthers game. This Titans offensive line has been really bad. Taylor Lewan, since his suspension has really struggled. He's going to come down 84 to an 82. I think he's still a good player, but definitely some signs of concerns there. Roger Saffold, this is something we hinted at in the preseason. It was just one play, but Byron Cowart, who ironically is actually going to go up this week for the Patriots, spoiler alert, but he got just run over by Cowart, who was an undrafted free agent in the preseason. Never want to react to that kind of thing, but really throughout the season, he's been just fine as a guard, like pretty much replacement level, which when you're paying a guy this much in free agency on a team that they've already had some big free agent signings, especially one in Malcolm Butler who hasn't really worked out, it's definitely concerning for the Titans. He's fine, but he has not lived up to the billing, and this offensive line certainly has not been fixed by signing Roger Saffold. Hell, in fact, the two guys that they let go, especially Quentin Spain in Buffalo, but Josh Klein's been fine for the Vikings as well. They've actually been just as good as Roger Saffold, so that's not looking like the best signing right there. On the interior defensive line, Daquan Jones has been a monster here. I think he's benefiting as well from Jeffrey Simmons, their first-round pick, coming in here. He's getting opened up a little bit. It's a really good defensive line. And then you've also got these edge rushers are playing pretty well here. The Titans do have an identity in their front seven. Just the defense as a whole is pretty solid. They got to figure out some things on the offensive side of the ball, but they're a competitive team. And then Kevin Byard, time to move him up. This guy is just one of the best free safeties in the NFL. It's pretty simple. And then Kenny Vaccaro on the flip side is actually going to come down. He's really struggling in coverage. Just, he's a box safety, but you do still have to cover, even if your primary role is to kind of come into the box and stop the run. You can't be a complete liability. So Kenny Vaccaro is going to come down. And then for the Panthers, Kyle Allen went down last week. He was awesome this week, a total turnaround performance. I still see him as a backup type, but what has impressed me about Kyle Allen is his ability to kind of spin the ball and make those impact throws down the field. He throws a really nice football. It's pretty simple right there. He's going to have a real opportunity to capitalize on this job. The Panthers are going to have a very clear-cut view on what they need to do at quarterback in this offseason, because Cam Newton you're going to be able to fully evaluate his health situation by the time it's time to make a decision. Kyle Allen will have almost a full year of tape as the starter here, and then they'll have lots of free agent and maybe even draft options at quarterback as well. But Kyle Allen's got a great opportunity here. He's got a lot of help on this offense, and some of that is Christian McCaffrey going up +2, 91 to a 93. He's getting closer and closer with some movement later in this video that's going to make him the #1 running back in the NFL. I'm not picking him for MVP, but he's been just absolutely amazing this year. He's going to have a field day this week matched up against Blake Martinez for the Packers. Then on the offensive line, this line's been awesome. We talked in weeks past about how this team just loads up on just big maulers, usually those former 5-star, 4-star SEC prospects that kind of get knocked for being a little more raw or undisciplined, and they just coach these guys up. So you got Dennis Daly going up +1, 61 to a 62. Taylor Moton, the right tackle, 79 to an 80. And then the left guard, Greg Van Roten, he's more of a veteran here, but he has been really solid as a pass protector. He's going to go up +2, 66 to a 68. And then just one piece of movement on the defense, Marquise Haynes, +2, 64 to a 66. This guy was, I keep saying this guy, but he is a guy. Anyway, Ole Miss, high-end prospect who was just kind of undersized coming out, never really gained weight. It was kind of a big question mark for him, was his work ethic, but he's slowly developing here in his second year as an edge rusher. Next game, we've got the Washington Redskins at the Buffalo Bills. Not a ton of movement in this one. These teams kind of were who we thought they were. So Adrian Peterson has been just a monster this year. The reports that he was out of money in the preseason were interesting, but he looks like a man playing for another paycheck. And I kind of like chip on his shoulder Adrian Peterson. It's fun to watch. He's kind of carrying this offense right now. Obviously not going to make an impact as a receiver, but he's just running guys over, breaking tackles, creating big runs. So plus 2, 78 to an 80. And then my guy, Troy Apke, I was really confused that this guy was not regarded really highly coming out. And it took him a while to earn a spot here in Washington. So there's clearly something going on with him, but he's been starting the last 2 weeks, and he has been super solid. An insane athlete at the free safety position. He's got some size to come up and hit you as well. So a really high upside addition to this defense with Troy Apke coming along. Pair him next to Landon Collins, who can be more of that box safety. This could be one of the best safety duos in the league in a couple of years if you give Apke a little more time to grow here. And then on the Bills side of the ball, a couple additions on the offensive side. So Devin Singletary is going to go up plus 2. He's been kind of what he was in college, which is not a burner. He's not going to have a bunch of breakaway runs. He's going to get caught eventually, but he's 5'7", over 200 pounds, so he's got that low center of gravity. He can absorb contact with the best of them, kind of like some of these other smaller, stockier backs. Kareem Hunt comes to mind. But, he's going to shrug off tackles, and he can catch the ball and do some nice things. He's just a good back to have. I don't know if he's ever going to be a number 1 guy, but I think a lot of people, draft experts, had Singletary as a pretty safe, high floor kind of pick, and he's shown that. And then John Brown, plus 175 to a 76. He's just running really nice routes. He's healthy. His hands leave a little bit to be desired. Like, it's not like he's dropping a ton of balls, but he's not making crazy catches, but he gets so open that he doesn't always have to. And, unfortunately, Allen's going to miss him occasionally. But regardless, John Brown's having a really nice season. That's been a good signing for them. They needed a guy that can create the separation here. So 75 to a 76 for John Brown. The 6th game of the week here, Chicago at Philadelphia. David Montgomery has done nothing but kick ass and take names since we lowered him a few weeks ago. So he's going plus 176 to a 77, getting closer to that 78 mark where he was 2 weeks ago when I dropped him. Tariq Cohen is going to come down here. We'll see if he goes on a big run and proves me wrong on that now. But, he just hasn't been the same. It's not like this offense was crazy last year. It's been worse this year. His opportunities have been the same. He's just not making as many guys miss and being as big of an impact. And we know he's not much of a running back. He's more of a halfback, a receiving back. But yeah, he's coming down. More falling here. We've got Mitchell Trubisky for the 3rd week in a row. He has just been a total dud. Just a laughingstock of the NFL. I just saw before I sat down to record this that he's asked the staff inside the building to turn off the TVs because he's tired of people on TV making fun of him. It's like, yeah, dude, play better. It's the NFL. If you play bad, people are going to make fun of you, especially when you were drafted in front of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Get over it, dude. Go to the film room. It's not working here in Chicago. I talked a lot about them on the podcast this week, so if you're a Bears fan and you want kind of my Bears takes, make sure you check out that Fully Inflated Football podcast. And then Eddie Jackson's coming down as well. I think he'll bounce back at some point. I still think he's a really talented player. I took a lot of criticism for being a little lower on Eddie Jackson just because with safety play, turnovers are a lot about luck, and he had a bunch of turnovers last year. I don't think he has a pick this year. And he really benefited from the elite pass rush that existed last year. It has not been the same this year. And I think something we also talked about in the preseason was how much he benefited from playing next to Adrian Amos, who stylistically complements him very well because he's a much more conservative guy and allows Eddie Jackson to take those big risks. So the surrounding situation hasn't been quite as good, where he was the best safety in the NFL last year, so he's taken a step back. He's missing a lot of tackles too, so I still think he's a really good player, but I do think we need to pump the brakes on him just a little bit after the hype from last year. And then for the Eagles, we got Brandon Brooks, plus 2, 88 to a 90. He's been the best guard in the NFL outside of maybe Quentin Nelson this year. So he's going to go up. Isaac Suamalu, a veteran here on the offensive line for the Eagles. The Eagles' offensive line was awesome this week against a really good Bears pass rush. So plus 167 to a 68. We got Alshon and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside going down. -2 for Alshon Jeffrey, -1 for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Jeffrey is just a little washed up at this point. He had 3 drops this week. It's just not looking like he's a number one guy. And then Arcega-Whiteside, like, what a bad pick. I'm not going to say I hate tooting my own horn, but I hate to toot my own horn here. I had a 5th to a 6th round grade on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I could not understand for the life of me why they took him in the 2nd round, especially with DK Metcalf available. I didn't really see it with him. Yeah, he had some nice contested red zone jump balls, but you don't take that in the 2nd round. He can't really even get on the field here. He's just not good or ready. And then on the defense is figuring a lot out here, especially in that secondary. But Albert Huggins, they picked him up off of the Texans practice squad. This is that Clemson, rotational D tackle, because they had all those beasts there last year, 2 first-round picks that Huggins was stuck behind. I think Houston should have tried to keep him instead of letting the Eagles pick him up, because I think he could turn into a really solid run-defending rotational lineman here. But that's what he's been doing for the Eagles here. And then Jalen Mills has been very solid the last few weeks. They needed him back because what they were getting from Sidney Jones just was a disaster. So getting Mills in there, it's not the ideal plug, but it's much better than Sidney Jones. All right, gonna try to pick up the pace as much as I can here. Minnesota at Kansas City. Olabisi Johnson, nothing crazy here, but he's getting some opportunities thanks to injuries there. I liked him coming out. It was kind of a steal in the 7th round. He's got good separation skills. He's going up +1, 67 to a 68. Laquan Treadwell is going to go up here, and he's had basically limited reps, a couple big plays, nothing insane, but he's a former 1st-round pick, was no longer wanted here because of his work ethic and just never developed here. But it's very possible. He's 24 years old. I know he has a young daughter. It's very possible that when he got released and then nobody wanted him for 6 weeks, he sat on the free agent block, a former 1st-round pick just a few years ago. That can be a reality check for you. And football for him, as a guy that didn't graduate, football has been his life. It must have been some sort of a awakening for him. So he's only 24 years old. I'm not going to completely write Treadwell off after kind of some signs of life the last few years. Maybe he hits the open market and gets another opportunity, because it's just not going to be here with the Vikings. They got too many guys in front of them. But just keeping an eye on Laquan. Then we've got tight end Irv Smith, +175 to a 76. He's so much better than Kyle Rudolph in literally every regard. The only reason I bring this up is because on this broadcast, they were talking about for 5 minutes about how Kyle Rudolph has improved as a blocker. I dial up his PFF grades, and they've actually gone down this year. Not going to drone on about Kyle Rudolph, though. I've done that enough over this season. But just pointing out that Irv Smith has been a really big bright spot for this team, and he's basically his playing time's been limited because of Kyle Rudolph. That's the other reason I bring it up. But Irv has been great when he's getting his opportunities, and he's blocking. On the edge, Everson Griffin. Someone asked on the podcast this week, who's your comeback player of the year? I couldn't think of anyone on the spot, but I think Everson Griffin, unless I'm forgetting someone, has to be the front runner for that. He's been one of the best edge rushers in the entire NFL this year. He's been basically pace for pace with what Danielle Hunter is doing there. It's an awesome duo, and yet again here on the road, he really dominated. Then on the Chiefs side of the ball, Damian Williams, he's going to go up. Most of his production came on that big run, but he's going up here because he showed some speed. And you look into it, he actually ran a 4.45. I didn't know he had that long speed in him. It's a guy that's been more of a short area quickness kind of guy. But to see him have that breakaway speed really kind of makes you think about the guy. And he was the first in line in a run of really good Oklahoma backs with like Joe Mixon, Rodney Anderson, and Trey Sermon coming up. Like there's a bunch of really good running backs there at Oklahoma, but Damian Williams was actually the first. Then we got Matt Moore. He's going up. He's playing awesome. Most of it I credit to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and, of course, Andy Reid, but Matt Moore is the guy running the show there. We're getting Patrick Mahomes back this week, though. Then we got Chris Jones. Dominant performance this week against the Vikings. I talked about how I wasn't ready to pick this game in my picks video last week because Garrett Bradbury, young rookie center, has bounced back a little bit, but he's a smaller guy, and he's really struggled with some of these big, nasty guys, and Bradbury really struggled this week. Chris Jones had 7 pressures. It wasn't all Bradbury, don't get me wrong, but Chris Jones really dominated this matchup. He's going up. And then Tano Passignon, interesting player here. So I traditionally don't like super tall, lengthy interior / defensive end guys because you have to have amazing technique. Tano Passignon is he 6'7" or 6'9"? I think he's like 6'7", 285, which is he's a power forward basically. And to be successful like that, you have to be both incredibly strong if you're going to play interior, which he's been playing as kind of a 4 technique here. But your technique also has to be incredible because you have to get low and get, low man wins in football. So I do like these guys like a Calais Campbell on the edge and some of these lengthier pass rushers just with speed rush around the edge, but they're kind of doing the opposite with passing, lining up more inside, which, my just kind of brain doesn't fully process how that works, but he's making it work here. As a run defender, he's creating some pressures as a pass rusher, getting a part of this rotation. He actually was a full-time starter here this week with Frank Clark still out. So he was a second-round pick. I think this is his 3rd year in the league. He wasn't a rookie last year, but he's developing slowly but surely here. And then Charvarius Ward has been probably the biggest bright spot on this entire defense at cornerback for this team. He keeps going up. Great pickup for them. So now we got the Colts at the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of movement in this game, so let's get into it. The Colts, Brian Hoyer going to go up. Did throw a pretty nasty interception in this game, so we're definitely not going to overreact to him going up. But besides that, he executed this offense, was moving the ball, worth a little boost. Zach Pascal's been one of my favorite players to watch this season. Big, physical, tough wide receiver. I just love his playing style. Then on the defense, I'm going to just kind of skip through talking about these guys. Other than Marvell Tell, who was a converted safety out of USC, who's been playing awesome at corner. The rest of these guys, I just felt the need to bump some of these guys up because the Colts defense is really solid, but it's not a star-driven defense. And these are kind of some of the names here that are playing well here. They rotate probably more than any defense in the NFL. And some of the guys you're seeing here are all contributing both in coverage and in run defense. Then on to the Steelers, we got James Washington, kind of a breakout day for him. He had a few spectacular catches in this game. Now he's back with his college quarterback, Mason Rudolph. I don't know how long that's actually going to last. I don't think Rudolph is very good, but I do think James Washington is pretty good. He looked awesome in the preseason, and then the regular season started, and he disappeared. He's lost weight, and he was dominant in college, but just hasn't been able to find that. So he finally showed that this week. I'm hoping for his sake he can keep that going because he really hasn't done anything up to this point, but he's going to go up. Zach Banner, this guy's one of the biggest players in the NFL. He's a tackle. He's bounced around on some practice squads and stuff. If anyone was going to find him and turn him into a starting caliber tackle, it was going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, who do this as good as anyone else on the offensive line. And he's kind of played in spots thanks to injuries, but he had a full start this week and was really good. So he's kind of a high upside guy because of how big and strong he is, a smart guy coming out of USC. So we'll see if that turns into anything or if it's just a little blip. We had Minkah there, and then Bud Dupree, and this pass rush has been awesome. They just come at you from so many different angles. Their interior gets pressure. You got TJ Watts having an awesome season on the other side. Now Bud Dupree kind of playing for a contract here. He hasn't done much in his career, but explosive power rush type of guy, and he comes screaming off that edge. So he's going up plus 272 to a 74. And then Vince Williams, the veteran linebacker there, has been doing some really nice things the last few weeks next to Bush. All right, Detroit at the Oakland Raiders. We've got Frank Ragnow and Joe Dahl on the offensive line going up. Ragnow has really settled in after moving back to center, a first-round pick last year. Then the 2 wide receivers are going up. And J.D. McKissick, the receiving back here. I just love what the Lions have done lately because for about the first 20 games, I would say, of the Matt Patricia era, they were like, we're going to run the ball and play defense. We're going to turn back the clock and, play like we did when I was coaching in the 90s. Even though I know that Patricia's younger guy. But anyway, they've basically said, enough with that. Our defense sucks. We've got this explosive quarterback, one of the best receiving cores in the NFL, an offensive line that's playing well. Let's sling this thing around. And it's really working out here. These receivers are awesome. And then on the defensive side of the ball, some good, some bad. Jelani Tavai was kind of a head-scratching second-round pick. Reminded me a lot of when the Patriots took Jawan Bentley and no one really knew who he was. That oversized, clunky middle linebacker. But Tavai, and I only bring that up because of the Patricia-Belichick connection here, but Tavai's kind of been solid there as a middle linebacker. He was missing a lot of tackles earlier in the year, but he's honed in on that, and he's actually using some of that length and instincts to be a decent cover guy as well. So he's going to go up. Jarrad Davis, on the other hand, freak athlete, was a first-round pick, but has been terrible since he got in the NFL. He's like an athletic Blake Martinez type. Like, he just doesn't have those instincts. His run fits suck. He doesn't have any understanding of coverage and where he needs to be. He just doesn't look like a starting caliber player right now. He looks more like a kickoff coverage guy. Then you've got John Atkins, +3. This was like a 25-year-old rookie out of Georgia. Just kind of that run-stuffing D-tackle type. You know, just another Dave Gettleman Award nominee here. +364 to a 67. And then on the Raiders side of the ball, this offense, it's been a lot of the same names here, but Derek Carr has been awesome. I'm actually going to have a film breakdown on Derek Carr tomorrow. Hopefully I have time to get to that. Then on the offensive line, Colton Miller continuing to develop. You know, we never really gave up on him, even though we were heavily critical of him after his rookie year where he was just awful. But he has, you know, worked on his technique and settled in here on a much better team. And then Richie Incognito was the signing of the year, I think. I mean, he's playing like a top 5 guard in the NFL. He looks like his old self. He's helping this team do what they need to do. And then Hunter Renfrow, I just tweeted this before I recorded this, but, you know, there's a lot of different opinions out there with how many people are you know, Twitter scouts and all that stuff, but I don't think there's a single scout in the world that's surprised to see Hunter Renfrow making an instant impact as a slot wide receiver in the NFL. Like, it was just a given. So he's going to go up. He's been really good. Alec Ingold, the fullback, rookie out of Wisconsin, has been awesome, clearing holes for Josh Jacobs, who's going up here. Jacobs is creeping up here towards being one of the best backs in the game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, some additions as well. It's been pretty sloppy on defense, but some guys are stepping up. You got Daryl Worley at corner. He's played well the last few weeks. He was a former third-round pick for the Eagles. He had some drug issues, I think, but he ends up getting scooped up here in Oakland, and he's settled down a little bit. He's maturing. And then you got Arden Key. He's rotating as that nickel interior rusher, which is kind of weird because he's small. He's getting some reps on the edge as well, but he's finding ways to kind of get involved here and get after the quarterback. They're having to get creative because this pass rush is so bad. And then PJ Hall, +2. He was a second-round pick last year. Was definitely raw coming out of Sam Houston State. But he has definitely honed his craft. He's been a much better run defender this year, and he's getting some push as a pass rusher as well. So they're slowly trying to figure out how to rush the passer here in Oakland. And then Trayvon Mullen's been really good. He's been asked to be the starter since the Conley trade, and he's really stepped up given that opportunity. That's looking like a pretty good pick. I was critical of them taking him over a Byron Murphy or Greedy Williams. Time will tell on that one, but you know, Mullen looks like he's going to be at least a solid corner, which is pretty good for a rookie. And then Tampa Bay at Seattle. Jameis Winston's going to go up. He was electric in this game. Mike Evans. I'm glad when Godwin was going off, I didn't spend too much time making fun of Mike Evans because I still think he can play. I still prefer receivers that create separation. And I think Mike Evans is going to come back to earth because of his style, which is, you know, I'm just going to box you out and make contested catches. You know, it's analytically proven that it's better to throw to a wide receiver that's wide open than a jump ball receiver who's covered. Even if Mike Evans gives you a 25% better chance of coming down with a contested catch situation, it's much better to have a guy who can get wide open. So I still think I would take Chris Godwin over Mike Evans, but it's closer now than I would have said about 3 weeks ago. But anyway, Mike Evans has been the best wide receiver in the NFL for the last 2 weeks. He deserves to be recognized for that. And, it's not that he can't get open. He just doesn't do it as well as some of these other elite guys. And when you're up here as an 89 overall, I think it's fair to have those discussions. So that's the Mike Evans breakdown there. Then we got William Golston. He was made to play 3-4 defensive end, I think. He's really thriving in this scheme as a run defender who's not much of a pass rusher, but that's fine, I suppose. He's having one of his best seasons as a run defender. Devin White was good this week, the first-round pick out of LSU at linebacker, but he's not going to go up. And then Jason Pierre-Paul, he's looking pretty washed at this point, missing tackles, not really providing the pressure you would hope from your number one pass rusher. I mean, Barrett's very clearly their number one pass rusher now, but Jason Pierre-Paul definitely on the elder years of his career. For the Seahawks, Russell Wilson's going to go up, +1, 91 to a 92. That puts him in sole possession of the second highest rated quarterback on my roster. Then we got wide receiver, Tyler Lockett, 83 to an 84. Russell Wilson, by the way, my clear-cut MVP pick right now. Then we got DK Metcalf, +1 as well. So these receivers are going to go up. The Seahawks, I think, need to do some sort of self-evaluation here. It's not that they can't win a Super Bowl like this. They absolutely can. They definitely can if they play like they do against Tampa Bay, but let's be very clear, the Tampa Bay secondary is awful and they don't have a pass rush. What I'm saying is, they can do this against really good teams, but a lot of times they bottle things up. They try to run the ball too much. They just focus on play-action deep shots. Let Russell Wilson be the best quarterback in the NFL. Just unleash him. You now are adding Josh Gordon to the mix here. So, I would love to see the Seahawks just really embrace a different identity here. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I definitely think that they would be capable of doing that. Then you got Jacob Hollister, +1, 67 to a 68. He was back at Wyoming watching Josh Allen's Jr. tape, and he really popped. The catches he was making for Allen, he missed him really bad when Hollister went to the pros before Allen did. But basically, he went to New England, flamed out there, and if Bill Belichick can't find a way to use you as a tight end, there's probably something going on there. But he's definitely been better here in Seattle, and he's run blocking, which was his biggest weakness. So he's an interesting player to keep an eye on if he continues to develop here. He's got a pretty high upside as a tight end. Kind of reminds me of Austin Hooper a little bit. Then you got Mike Iupati. He's not terrible, but just not what he used to be. So he's going to come down -2, 72 to a 70. He's been losing a lot of matchups lately. And then Marquise Blair. Here's another tweet recently. The resemblances between him and Marcus Williams, another second-round pick. Actually, these guys were, Blair was the 47th pick. Williams was the 42nd pick, both out of Utah. Ironically, they're both 6'1", 195. They're both true free safeties. One's Marcus, one's Marquise. Is Marquise Blair Marcus Williams? He looks awesome out there as a free safety. I kind of liked what I saw from him. And I remember I had to keep pushing him up my draft board based on where he was projected to go. I think I ended up with a 3rd to a 4th round grade on him. He reminded me a lot of Adrian Amos, I think was my player comp. But he's been awesome here in this Seattle scheme. They seem to have found their Earl Thomas replacement. He's never going to be Earl Thomas, but if he can be Marcus Williams, this team is going to be thrilled with what they found in the second round, and this front office just continues to draft well. So let's keep going. We've got the Green Bay Chargers game. I want to make sure I don't forget any of these. Less movement in these next few games, but David Bakhtiari has not been the same. He's been kind of the gold standard for pass protection the last 2 or 3 years, but just not this year. He's had some tough matchups, but it's not an excuse, and he usually doesn't get the better pass rusher. That's actually been Bulaga, who has been struggling lately, but he was awesome for the first 7 weeks, so we're going to stay put on Bulaga, who had a really bad game this week. So the offensive line, the tackles have been a little worse, and then one bright spot on the defense this week that just decided not to show up, but Tramon Williams, the veteran, he's I think enjoying playing slot corner. We've seen this a lot from veteran corners getting moved into the nickel where their lack of athleticism at their older age can't be exposed as much, but their knowledge of the game and instincts and technique can really thrive. And I think that Tramon Williams is really getting comfortable there in the slot. And then Dean Lowry has kind of screwed this Packers team over, honestly, because they let Mike Daniels go, and then about 12 hours later gave Dean Lowry a decent 3-year contract extension. He's a kind of freak athlete out of Penn State who has developed really nicely here, but he has just disappeared in a bad way since they gave him that contract extension. Teams are just running right past him week after week after week. They need an answer at defensive line next to Kenny Clark right now. Do they pick Muhammad Wilkerson back up, who was pretty good here last year? I don't know. But it's just been a train wreck here for Dean Lowry. And then just one riser for the Chargers. I did actually raise Mike Williams' speed, though, who showed some real burst on a breakaway play from J.R. Alexander, who we know can run. So Mike Williams' overall is not going to change, but he's going to get +2 speed from an 88 to a 90. Then we've got Joey Bosa, who's been one of the best defensive players in the entire league, next to his brother, Nick. It's tempting to do like a Madden franchise and try to get the Bosa twins. That would just be a blast. But anyway, Bosa was dominant in this game. He was really the number one reason that Rodgers and these tackles and just they couldn't do anything on third down, and it felt like every time they got to third down in the first half in this game, Joey Bosa was the one blowing everything up. So he was awesome. +3, 87 to a 90. Then we got Cleveland at Denver. Baker's going to come down again. I mean, he looks chubby. He's angry. He's still making big mistakes. Definitely regressing here. I'm not giving up on Baker, but how can you not lower him based on how he's played this year? And then Jarvis Landry just hasn't been much of an impact here. We know he's got a certain ceiling, but even then he's disappointed this year. I actually thought he would be really borderline explosive with this passing game, with Odell as the deep threat, Baker being so efficient in this short passing game, but Jarvis just hasn't had it. And then moving over to the Broncos side of the ball, Noah Fant bounced back. We lowered him 2 weeks ago, the first-round tight end out of Iowa. He can absolutely run, but he's had drop issues. He's had trouble tracking the ball. He still isn't blocking very well, but he's had a couple good weeks in a row. And just seeing him celebrate after a touchdown this week, he looks like a guy that's just thrilled to be playing well. So sometimes that confidence can just be contagious. So we'll see if he continues to rise as this season wraps up. And then Courtland Sutton has been the biggest bright spot on this offense for sure. And he's doing it now with backup quarterback play. He's doing it with, Joe Flacco for the first half of the season, and he just looks dominant. So +2, 78 to an 80. And then Elijah Wilkinson, +1, 63 to a 64. He's a tackle here. He's had starts throughout his career. He's a good swing man to have. He held up in this game against Myles Garrett. Cleveland actually moved Garrett over to the left end position more than he's played any game this year to match up against Elijah Wilkinson, and he, held his own. Garrett only, I think, had one pressure in this game. He was not very good. And then Alexander Johnson's been one of the stories of the year. Now, he has, a history of, rape allegations, so that's always kind of a touchy subject, but definitely a breakout, comeback, emerging talent on this Broncos defense. And he is a former high-end prospect. His athleticism shows. He's been awesome as a run defender. He's covering well. This is the 5th week in a row he's going up. He is the number 1 rated linebacker by PFF this year, straight up, just period. So he's been definitely a diamond in the rough here. And then Mike Purcell, yet another dirt cheap street free agent who's dominating in run defense. Not contributing as a pass rusher whatsoever, but there you go. There's another Dave Gettleman Award winner right there, Mike Purcell. Okay, now we got the Patriots-Ravens game. Tom Brady's going to come down this week. No one wants to say it. Everyone's so afraid. Oh, he's the GOAT, all this stuff. Tom Brady's not playing well, okay? He's just not. His offensive line actually played pretty well in this game. Yeah, he doesn't have the receivers that he has had throughout his career. But hey, guess what? That's what elite quarterbacks do. They elevate their offense when they don't have pass protection, when they don't have great wide receivers. And Tom Brady's done it at points in his career. He's not doing it this year. This is not a great offense right now. So calling a spade, Tom Brady at 42 years old is just not playing well. I think EA still has him as a 99 overall. That to me is indefensible. He's still really good. We got him as an 88, but he's just not someone defenses are afraid of at the moment. There was never really a moment in this game where you were like, oh God, Tom Brady's going to murder us. It's just not something that's in the cards right now with Brady in this offense. Marcus Cannon did bounce back this week. He was awesome. The right tackle, we lowered him, I think, last week. So we're going to keep an eye on that. He's been pretty bad all year. But if he plays well again, we'll bounce him back up. They're hitting the bye this week, New England. They really need Isaiah Wynn to come in at left tackle because Marshall Newhouse is definitely a liability there at left tackle. Then we got James White at running back. He's going up for his receiving skills. I mean, that catch he had down the sideline, great throw by Tom Brady there, by the way. But he's a legitimate wide receiver. He's one of the smartest, just technicians in the league. I still think he has holes in his game. He's not incredibly elusive, fighting for yards and all that stuff, but he just does the little things very well. He's the perfect Patriot. So he's going to go up plus 276 to a 78. Interior defensive lineman Byron Cowart. We talked about him earlier. Former 5-star prospect who ended up transferring from somewhere to Maryland I think it was for pod or whatever, and he kind of was underutilized there at Maryland, but a freak athlete. Bill Belichick grabs this guy. He's been not getting a ton of playing time here, but he was really good in this game. So plus 263 to a 65. Kind of a high upside, potential 3-down interior defensive lineman if he keeps developing. And then on the Ravens side, people have been waiting for this one. This is a really long episode, by the way, but we are going to have a lot of movement on this Ravens offense that was really impressive this week, particularly in the run game. So the offensive line, all four of these guys just going up. I mean, this is probably the best run-blocking offensive line in the NFL right now. There's actually some really good lines out there at the moment. You obviously have Dallas is really good, Philadelphia, Oakland. I'm probably shortchanging some teams, but Baltimore's right there with the top 5, I think. Really, other than left guard, who's Bradley Bozeman, who's kind of a question mark, all these guys are studs. And then Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, these guys look awesome. Ingram looks more explosive than he ever has. That was an awesome signing to go and get him. And then Lamar Jackson's going to go up. Now, there's only so much you can raise when you're only throwing for 150 yards a game. I still want to see Lamar get into a passing shootout against a team that kind of makes them switch off of this kind of, I don't want to use the word gimmicky, but triple option offense. He's impressed the hell out of me, and his accuracy's been much better. So he's going up again. He's gone up a lot this year. He's been a much better quarterback passing the ball than he was last year. This is going to put him way up there, and people are going to be like, how can you have an MVP candidate as a 74? Well, when Cam Newton won the MVP, I only had him as an 82, and when Matt Ryan won it a couple years, he was only an 81. So, Lamar's getting up there towards that, I suppose. Linebacker Josh Bynes has been one of the pickups of the year as far as a midseason pickup. They really were struggling at linebacker, and Patrick Owasu was better in this game, but he was struggling early. Obviously, they let C.J. Mosley leave, so they needed someone to plug in there, and Josh Bynes, who was actually really good in Arizona last year. There's a lot of teams that could desperately need Josh Bynes that were just doing poor NFL scouting right there. You don't just got to scout college prospects, you got to scout NFL teams and find ways to improve your team through free agency. There's 5 to 10 teams that are probably scratching their heads how do we miss this guy? Why do we not pick Josh Bynes up? Well, the Ravens were the team that did that, and he looks just like C.J. Mosley out there, and he's been awesome. He's been going up a lot this year. Last game here, Dallas at the New York Giants for the Dallas Cowboys. The offense was the offense, in my opinion. Some mistakes by Dak, but pretty solid. Amari Cooper making some big plays. The offensive line really good. Zeke was really solid. That was the Cowboys offense. But on the defensive side of the ball, definitely some risers here. Sean Lee, we lowered him quite a bit about week 5 or 6. Well, Leighton Vander Esch has been hurt, and they have asked Sean Lee to kind of wipe the rust off the tires and get back in there, and I think that's actually been good for him. I think when he was rotating in off the bench, kind of being half coach, half player, I think he would get on the field and maybe didn't have the same burst or energy, but having a full week to prepare as a starter, kind of get his body right, like he looks more like the old Sean Lee. Definitely comforting for Dallas to know that they have that depth. So he's been playing much better, plus 273 to a 75. And then in the slot, Jordan Lewis. We had a big debate last year between Anthony Brown and Jordan Lewis, who's better in that slot position. And I believe Anthony Brown is injured, so they've been kind of forced to play Jordan Lewis. I've always thought that Lewis is the better player. I loved him coming out of Michigan as a playmaker, ideal for an NFL slot corner. I think he has the upside of a top 5 slot corner in the NFL, and he's showing it here in Dallas. I don't see Brown getting that job back. And then you got Xavier Woods. He's just been so rangy. 2 picks in the last 2 weeks. They have a real free safety. There's a lot of rangy free safeties emerging here. A couple of years ago, this was a really thin position in the NFL. There was only probably 8 to 12 really good rangy free safeties. But we've had kind of an influx of these guys with Marcus Williams, with maybe Marquise Blair in Seattle, Minkah converting over to free safety. Darnell Savage has come in for the Green Bay Packers. You got Xavier Woods. There's been a huge influx of these rangy free safeties, and it's, I'm not going to say changing the game, but it's definitely, changed how positional value has been perceived here. So then we've got Malik Collins for the Cowboys on the interior defensive line. He's just having a really solid year. He's had his ups and downs. I believe this is a contract year for him. I could be wrong about that. He's been much better as a run defender this season, really been more disciplined because he's had some burst and definitely a lot of signs as a pass rusher in years past. But he's settled in here and been a much more refined player, and he's earning a lot more playing time as this team's best interior defensive lineman this year. Michael Bennett also was really good getting after the quarterback here. That's going to be a good addition next to Malik Collins on third downs. And then also DeMarcus Lawrence is playing a lot better too. He's come down this year, so if he keeps playing like this, he'll go back up. Then we got Joe Thomas, the linebacker here for the Cowboys. We no longer have to clarify which Joe Thomas we're talking about here. He's a veteran. He's that nickel linebacker. I actually kind of don't understand when he plays because obviously right now you got Leighton Vander Esch is hurt, so maybe he's coming in when Sean Lee comes out. But they have so many good linebackers there. It's kind of weird that he finds his way onto the field 20 times a game, but he does. So plus 168 to a 69. And then for the Giants, just one player. It is going to be Saquon Barkley. Giants fans are going to be upset about that. He's still the best running back on my roster. Look, I just had him at superhero status, and he quite frankly has not been the same guy he was last year. Still insane, still can make incredible plays, but I do question his vision a little bit. If we're going to be critical of him, which you're allowed to do when you're at the top, he's got some weaknesses, but I still think he's probably the best running back in the NFL. I think I'd still probably take him over Christian McCaffrey. It's very close now, though. Definitely closer than I would have said heading into the year. But he's just going to come down a little bit because he's not making as many people miss, not really contributing to this offense too much, which... I mean that's not fair. He's contributing to the offense, but he hasn't been a difference maker for this offense, which is borderline impossible to do if you're a running back. So those are the studs and duds this week. Again, guys, please do hit that like button. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a thing or two. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.